Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker. She's the host of the program, and this is the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Barb Schlinker, the owner broker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Now, Barb, I've heard you tell stories about people gaining access to other people's homes now in this environment where we have over 8 million illegal immigrants who have entered the country and they were let go. Now more than ever, people with empty homes should be very concerned about squatters. So, Barb, how do you prevent squatters from occupying your home?
Well, Richard, it's funny. The first time I talked about it, I'm still getting feedback on it. It's been over a year that we discussed this. And people are like, yeah, you really scared me on that show. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but it could happen. I've talked to people that it's happened to. It's happened to me twice, or no, at least twice on a couple of properties. And believe me, it's a nightmare when it takes place because if they get in, there's not much you can do about it. According to the state law, you actually have to formally evict them, whether or not they have authority to be there or not. I talked to one gentleman that's an investor, and he had people living under all over his house, and he could not just call the police and have them taken away for trespassing. There are cases when you can, like if you let somebody in to use a bathroom and they don't leave, that's probably trespassing. So I think it wasn't really clear on the research that I did what's the difference between trespassing and squatting. But the key is don't let them in as best you can. There are a lot of camera systems and solutions out there that would be very helpful. I think people are afraid of cameras. And different states have different rules. Like California's rights, it might be 6 months before you get them out in California. And then, they this one in California, they sent the seller to jail. I don't know why. It was insane. But at the end of the day, in this state, you can't cut off utilities. You can't lock them out. You can ask them to leave, but whether or not they leave is another story. I had years ago when I did property management. I don't do that anymore. I have somebody at my office that does property management, but I helped a gentleman sell his house, and he goes, I don't know, I'm not getting paid from the tenant. So we went through the whole formal legal process thinking we were evicting that tenant. It turned out the people that were in the house were not the tenants. They were somebody else that he had given access. Inside the garage, there was a stolen car. I was there on lockout day because they make the real estate agent attend, which is not. Once I did that, the whole experience to me was like, I don't want to do this line of work. I just didn't like it. It was really uncomfortable. They there were all these kind of people hanging around on the cul-de-sac waiting to pick through the stuff that got thrown out on the front yard. The police came, they brought in animal control to deal with the fish in the fish tank. They found a car in the garage that was stolen. And then one of the occupants of the house ran into the house next door, which it wasn't really a very nice neighborhood. The house next door was condemned. He got arrested for being going into that home because you weren't supposed to go into that home because the police watched him do it. And then they found out his name, and he had a warrant out for arrest for murder in another state. And I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to change careers here. I don't like this. This is not my line of work. I admire police and police officers and what they do. It's one of my favorite shows is Cops, but I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. So anyway, I had another listing. It was a vacant home. Vacant homes are usually the ones that are most likely to have squatters break into them. And that one, it was when my son was a teenager. At 7 a.m, my sign's out front, so we're getting ready to sell it. And I get a call at 7 a.m. from the sheriff. And I'm thinking, oh God, I wonder where my son is. He was home, but I was thinking, is he out causing trouble? What's happening? And he goes, yeah, there's all these kids, at this house. Well, it turned out these kids broke in an open window. They somehow took off doors and boarded up the windows on the main level and went down in the basement and had this huge party. But the neighbors heard it, and then they called the sheriff, and all the kids scattered except the one kid that was 18. So that 18-year-old got busted for the whole thing. But the key is to don't let them in. And one of the ways you avoid it is have some cameras up, have them on trees, have them. I have one client that has one in a spot that's very hard to notice. You wouldn't even know it's there, because he's selling a vacant house. So he's watching his house every single day. And I think that's probably the cheapest and best way to prevent it, because then you'll know the moment that they come in, you'll get notification. So you want to, prevention is probably the best solution to it, but it's so frustrating for homeowners if it does happen, because first of all, if you call the police, they're so busy with other types of criminal crimes. They call this like a civil thing, not a criminal thing. Does that make sense to you, Richard? I'm not in the legal world at all. I got a B in business law, and I knew it wasn't for me.
Well, it is confusing, even for me. I mean, I've got a law degree. I was a trial attorney for almost 8 years, but squatting was not a big deal at that time. And I remember when we started hearing from law enforcement and they were saying, this is a civil issue, you're going to have to go that route. Me thinking, this is trespass. This has got to be a criminal trespass of some form or another. But you know what, Barb? Nobody talks about this. Nobody talks about this. You talk about this,
Yeah.
and people are listening because people are very, very concerned about going on vacation or putting their home up for sale. And all of a sudden they've got people who are in there and it's going to take 6 months or a year to get them out.
Yeah, and we give, even if our homes are occupied and they have a lockbox on it, we give our sellers access to the box. They can take the key out when they don't want showings. They have total control over it, because you're not going to have agents breaking in or anything like that. That's not normal. I imagine there's some story you could find out there like that, but it's pretty uncommon. Most of the time, it's vacant homes that don't have cameras, don't have pets around, and people break in. One of the rules that our MLS has, which drives me nuts, is, and just to back up a little bit, one of the marketing things that we do is something called virtual staging. So instead of dragging furniture into an empty house to make it look occupied, we're not doing it for that reason. Mostly we're doing it to, just because the buyers have a better chance of visualizing themselves in the home when it's furnished. Homes look better furnished than they do vacant, in my view. So we take the pictures and then we digitally put furniture in, and it looks very real. The problem is our local MLS mandates that we also put the picture of the same room without furniture, and that telegraphs to the world that it's empty. And I had one last year on the market that was virtually staged, but I followed the rules and put the empty rooms in there. Sure enough, 5:30 in the morning, here comes this, scumbag breaking into the backyard. It had a garage service door in the back, and he actually used tools and took the doorknob out. He almost got in through the house through the garage, but the seller had this slide lock position lower, so there's no way he could open that door. So he stole a power washer out of the shed out back, and he was walking up the street with the power washer. Thank God for the neighbor's beagle who alerted, plus the cameras, and the police got him walking up the street with the power washer. And they're like, "Where'd you get that?" "Oh, I don't know. It's mine." And he was probably some druggie just trying to get stuff to resell it. But the problem was, because of these really dumb local MLS rules, we had to telegraph to the world that it was empty. And I don't want to do that anymore. So I have an alternative way of marketing where I can prevent the world from knowing that it's an empty house when it's on the market. And I think that's very important for home sellers, because they want to feel some kind of protection, but cameras are probably really good as well. I even had one listed a couple years back it was a neighborhood that, a little bit, it's parts of it are nice and parts of it are not. But anyway, we had the house on the market. We had it staged actually with real furniture, some furniture. Actually, no, that one was virtually staged. Same thing, Pikes Peak rules. These squatters broke into it. There were 7 guys in this big house. The agent showed up to show, and they answered the door. Can we help you? And she goes, oh, I thought it was vacant. Oh no, the owners let us live here. That's what they said. So I go flying down there. I happen to be nearby. So I go over there. My husband's like, don't you dare go over there. Call the police. I'm like, they're not going to come. So I went and sat in the driveway. I didn't get out of my truck. I sat in the driveway, and one guy came back. One of those 7 guys came back, and he's like, oh, ma'am, my most valuable ownership thing in there is this leather coat, and I have to have it. I think it had needles in it. Oh, please put it outside. I said, fine, I will go get it, and I'll put it outside, but don't you come back because the cops are coming. Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So I put his coat outside. Sure enough, a week later, they broke back in again. And you could tell, because we cleaned up the place after they broke in the first time, that there were some weird things going on. There were chemicals and all kinds of junk. And so I'm like, all right, so the second time they broke in, I kind of gave up, because I'm like, I'm not the police. The police are not coming. The seller's out of state. We're going to have to evict them. So I told them about it. And I'm thinking that, okay, at this point, if they're doing something like meth, it contaminates the house, and it could mean a total tear down to the studs if they did. But anyway, after that, I get a call from Colorado Springs Utilities going, the water usage is really high here, because my sign's still in the yard. And I said, well, shut it off. And they're like, no, we can't. There's people in the home. So those idiots, what they did was they cut the copper plumbing so they could sell it to make some drug money. And then the water started flowing so much so it filled up the crawl space and was coming out the sides of the house. Could you imagine that, Richard?
I can imagine it because it happens, but it is a nightmare. And Barb, I respect and appreciate you so much. And it's one of the reasons people need to think about a circumstance like this and who they want representing them. And that is you and only you.
Well, you can't evict yourself. You can't throw them out yourself. You have to go through the legal process. It could take a month. It could take longer than a month if they find a way to get the judge to believe that they belong to be there. But at the end of the day, we help people with prevention techniques so you don't have to worry as much about it. And if you are thinking of making a move, give us a call at 719-301-3900 or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
Barb, all of this is one of the many reasons that I recommend you, a trusted Navy veteran. When people are thinking about selling a home, you want someone who's got experience. Barb, you've got that experience. I'm Richard Randall. You are listening to Your Real Estate Voice. Barb Schlinker is your real estate voice, the owner broker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. And you can always reach Barb at 719-301-3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. Take a short break. When we come back, we'll be discussing the top tips to increase the sales price of your Colorado home. Make sure you tune in. You want to hear that.